Welcome to the first edition of what I was planning on calling 3-minute game reviews, but I know I won't be able to keep my mouth shut for that long. Well, here we are. First game I have up as an official review in my time at Channel 3 is called Lesson Learned. Lesson Learned is a game that was developed by MadGamesmith, a Polish game developer. This game has been out on Steam since just the end of May and is being released on the Nintendo Switch on June 12th of 2024, the day you're probably hearing this. Additionally, you can also find a demo, kind of side level, of the game called Lesson Learned, Cult of Elizabeth, that is available to test out as well on Steam. The game is regularly $9.99, on sale for $7.49 right now in the US, I believe. So, pretty reasonable game. Basically, the summary is this is a tower defense game. It's got a healthy dose of real-time strategy mixed in with it. What I'd really tell people is, if you like Pikmin and the Pikmin series, if you like Plants vs. Zombies, and the Bloons franchise is the other one that comes to mind, this is probably a game that's worth checking out for you. You take on the role of Frank, a student that drifted off in class and now has to battle their way through the major ages of history by taking on monstrous caricatures representing those periods in history while protecting your living base, some sort of monstrous creature that moves throughout the level while you continue to make your way through. As the game progresses, you unlock additional minions for your use. Classmates for your use. I'm just kidding. They call them minions. They are there to assist you, much like the Pikmin in Pikmin itself. They are there to gather resources for you. They assemble and build your weaponry that will defend your tower. They gather just loose resources on the ground, but we'll get back to that. One thing I would tell everybody, the vibe of this game, Tim Burton is the first thing that came to mind. It's a very Tim Burton vibe to this. Sunken-eyed characters. They've got no arms, just detached hands floating in the air. Very drab environs, very muted colors where they're battling this thing out. You know, really, as I mentioned, this game's very similar to many tower defense games. You have a variety of weapons with feature and attack styles that can be subsequently upgraded. As with most tower games, they also have strengths, they have weaknesses, what shoots faster, what has a bigger attack range, what does more damage, all of which have a little bit of give and take while you're working your way through the different weapons that are there. You really need to have an understanding of the different enemy types that you will be facing through the course of that level. There is a guide bar that's at the top that lets you know, hey, what exactly are you looking at here? Are you looking at a land-based minion enemy type of thing that's going to be attacking quickly? Are you looking at ranged enemies? Are you looking at brutes or tanks? Are you looking at bosses? Are you looking at flying enemies? That way you can prepare, you can align your weaponry that's going to be coming, and you're ready for the upcoming assault there. Your character itself, Frank, the main kid, they only have a slingshot that's technically an offensive weapon. However, it really has only got the capacity to stun a very limited range of enemies. So you're really depending on just the weaponry that's being built here in order to defend yourself. Resources in the field include wood. You have both trees that can be cut down and loose pieces of wood that are laying around. So you have to decide, what are we gathering now? What are we gathering later? What are we taking the time to cut down now versus picking up later? Same thing goes for rock. There are loose rocks and there are large boulders to be broken down. And then also there's a slime resource as well, which is dropped randomly by enemies, and probably the most essential because it's used for upgrading your weapons in the field and also for producing when you get to the higher end weapons themselves. They actually require slime in order to be assembled. So basically 3 main resources, very manageable in the grand scheme of things. I played through the game on medium difficulty. For most of the game, playing through 4.5 of the worlds, it was very, very manageable. Maybe a little too manageable sometimes, but by the 5th age, the 5th world, the 5th map, it certainly becomes more challenging. There's a surprise spot where you have a second path of attack that happens in the back half of the level. Normally, there's one path of attack. You just assemble your weaponry and just pound the enemies as they come get you. Not so much. Suddenly you start finding yourself dying and having no idea why as your base is getting wrecked because the enemies are coming from elsewhere. But anyway, I probably could have played most of the game on a higher difficulty level. Still managed to have a good time with it. I will say, even on the medium level, the final hordes that were coming through, the bosses, the tanks, they were certainly more challenging. A little bit of scrambling there to make sure I was prepared for those final attacks. But again, for those who are used to the real-time strategy, used to this resource management, it should not be too difficult. Weapon designs themselves can be upgraded prior to going into a level. The other resource I should mention is artifacts, spelled strangely with ARTEFACTS, but those are dropped randomly by enemies, and then when you beat a boss at the end of a world, they're dropped in a higher quantity, and you use those to unlock the higher levels of weaponry which you are able to then upgrade when you're in the field. They're extremely limited in-game by the amount of slime that you have. Still helpful to have at least one or two of your weapons maxed out. Those maxed out weapons usually have a supplemental elemental attack to them. So, it's there. It's interesting. I played this game on Switch. Again, I mentioned this one came out on Steam a couple of weeks ago. Comes out on Switch on June 12th. No issues at all with the hardware. It played very cleanly. I would not see any reason this is not going to be solid on the PC as well. Animation is good. It's got that, like I said, hand-drawn kind of feel, very Tim Burton kind of animation. Not at all taxing, though, on the 7-year-old Switch hardware. Played very cleanly. So, worth picking up. Again, I mentioned the Pikmin, the balloons, the Plants vs. Zombies crowds. Probably a good game for you to check out. Last thing I would note is I wrap this up and have, again, very much gone over my originally intended 3-minute mark. But last thing I would mention for everybody, this is a game that I reviewed based on a copy I received from the publisher, so a slight asterisk on the end of this, but want to give everybody an idea of whether this game's worth checking out. But again, for $7 to $10, depending on the price you're looking at there, probably worth picking up and checking out. So that is the end of what is, I may call it not a 3-minute review. That may be the most effective name for this. But anyway, let me know. It'll be on the podcast feed. It'll be on YouTube, and we'll see how it goes. Thanks, everybody.